So here's the story, honey. We couldn't go to the island without stopping at South Bass, but as it turns out, the Sunny S isn't running until Memorial Day. So it would have been disappointing for the girls if they'd been here, because we'd have trouble getting there. But what we decided to do was to take the Miller line to Catawba and then hop on the one that's going into South Bass. With that having been said, we just had a pleasant talk with the barista over at the Island Grind, which is right behind the Lawns Winery facade, which is weird because we thought it would be at either where my Aunt Irma's used to be or at the marina. But turns out they have a special little place here, and she filled us in on a few things. Also that the boys on the ship will get their coffee delivered when they come in for the first run of the day at 8:15. Anyway, somebody came to pick up their 3 coffees, and we took that as our cue to go. We hopped on here, paid our money to get on, and the guy said, "How are you going to get there?" And we just said, we're just going to take the ferry on down to Catawba, take Catawba to South Bass, and then the last trip from Catawba on to Middle Bass would be at 6:15. Well, it turns out they do they call it a lunch run, but it's more like a dinner run at 4:30 from the southern point on South Bass to Middle Bass. And he said, if you like, you can get on that. I don't know what they'll charge us for that. I'm not worried about it. I can certainly swing it, but it's just kind of like we may have an arrangement going, which works out real nicely. It's weird to see how things work out. Well, we're waiting for the next ferry, and the boutique that used to be in here in the Harbor Master station on Catawba has just turned into a waiting area, which, I mean, I guess there's a lot to wait for, but at least it's not long. The next ferry will be here in about 15 minutes. And we're just gonna head out. Daniel's talking about how he went to this one nook here and how they'd offered a stained glass lighthouse for sale and had been coveting it for a couple of years before we finally got it for him. Still has it. But other than that, there's not much to recommend this place, other than if you're waiting for your next ferry. At least the South Bass ferries are more frequent, so we're just gonna head on in. There's a bit of a commotion behind us. It turns out, I think, we've got a middle school or maybe a grade school field trip coming with us on the ferry. So this might be interesting in its own right, though I don't think I'm probably going to go into a lot of footage because I don't want to film little kids. YouTube gets a little fussy about that. But let it be said, they're there, we're on there with them. We'll tell you about them when we wind up in port. Well, this trip is going to be a lot shorter than the last one, that's for sure. No, not there. That's Mouse Island. You know that better than I do. But South Bass is still visible from here, so it's going to be less than the 40 minutes that it usually takes us to get from the mainland to our cottage. So I do believe this is a bigger ship than the one we take to Middle Bass, which stands to reason because this is a bigger attraction. Turns out those high school trippers, well, no, that's the thing. I don't know if they're high school or just about there. They're older than I thought, but we'll still try and keep them off the screen. Now we get to find out when and if we can get back. There was some talk about a dinner run around 4:30, but if that doesn't work out, then we'll have to hop this one to the mainland around 5:30, 5:45 in order to take the 6:15 back to Middle Bass. I gotta figure out where the ticket agent is or something